This is my friend Cliff Duvall. When I first started advocating for medical cannabis up here at the legislature, there was one veteran who was up there advocating, and it was Cliff. So Cliff is ground zero of the Veterans for Medical Marijuana movement in Texas. And so it started with Cliff, and now look, there's hundreds of us, thousands of us. This is my friend Romana. When I first became an advocate, I knew Cliff, and then one of the next veterans I met was Romana. Romana is the Veterans Coordinator of Houston Normal. Romana, for the last several years, has come up to the legislature and testified in front of several different committees. She always gives very moving testimony, and we're very proud of Romana, and I'm proud to introduce her today.
I'm going to try and be grounded because I get very emotional. I can actually take it back further than Korea. When I came back from the military, I had stuff happen that was national security I wasn't allowed to talk about. And my World War II uncle watched me line up punch cups of Jack Daniels and drink 7 of them. He said, "Niece, what the hell happened to you?" I said, "You don't have security clearance high enough for me to tell you." He said, "Well, then let me tell you. I survived D-Day. And that night when we were huddled around a fire, some French soldiers came and they smoked cannabis with us. And he said, they told me then it would not make the day go away, but it would make it easier to bear. And if I found myself trapped by alcohol or painkillers, that I should try cannabis. And niece, I am begging you to do the same thing." And I said, "But alcohol's legal. Why should I go to something illegal?" He said, "Because alcohol killed your brother last week. I don't want it to happen to you." And he knew I got suicidal, and he made me promise that I would try cannabis before I pulled the trigger. And I'm from California, and I had a day where I was very bad like that. And I contacted a Navy friend. They said, "We're going to take you to the doctor. You're going to get your recommendation. I'm going to take you to a dispensary." And by God, he did that. And I went in, and they said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I had a 45 under my chin last night." And they said, "We're going to give you something called Tahoe G. It will help you relax. It'll make you step back. You'll feel better." I said, "I have really bad nightmares and such." And he said, "They were going to give you some Granddaddy Purple, and that will help." I said, "Yes, you keep it labeled separately." And I did that. My VA doctor was very happy that I was using medical cannabis because she didn't have to worry about me ODing. The second year I was a patient, she said, "Do you garden?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Then you need to grow your own medicine because that's even more therapeutic." And I did, and certainly I grew with my tomatoes and my basil and such. And when I finally told them what had happened to me, I'm a survivor of 4 years of military sexual trauma. I was beaten and raped by an Iranian pilot and given a direct order never to tell my own mother why I could not have babies. And I didn't tell anybody this until December of 2011 when they had somebody prove to me they had security clearance happen. That happened before my 18th birthday in 1976. So they sent me here to Houston to the Weiser Center, which is specifically for military sexual trauma. And they went to a vet center, which is separate from a VA. It's where combat veterans can go and military sexual trauma veterans can go. And they gave me 70% for my PTSD, but they said essentially you're too crazy to work, so we're going to pay you 100%. And I said, "Well, I've worked my whole life. What am I going to do?" And my vet center therapist said, "You need to become a cannabis activist here in Texas. You need to turn what was taken away from you into something positive." And at one point they offered me immersion therapy, which is supposedly where you talk about this till it doesn't matter. Well, I would not want what happened to me to not matter. And she said, "Use it to go and talk to your congressman and your representative. Tell them." Because she said she'd had 2 veterans commit suicide under that. And she did, if you were blown up on the side of the road or shot at a couple of times, but for 4 years of complex PTSD like I survived, that's not a good thing. Their biggest concern was now I was going to be a criminal here in Texas when California sent me here. And with this election, even more veterans now have access. And as I said, my zip code should not make me a criminal. And it should not make any of us criminals at all. You know? I mean, this is a real medicine. I have 5 different VA doctors and a dentist in Texas here. They all support my using cannabis because I don't have to worry about my dying from this stuff. They don't have to check my organs to see if I'm getting toxic stuff, you know? They're very happy, but they're all very concerned about it. Who were here last year? That's it, Teresa. my friend Wendy, Michelle. You stand for them. Two more things I want to mention quickly. You see a number here, 6630507. This is a patent number our government has on cannabis as a neuroprotectant. In that documentation, they say it is non-toxic and non-lethal. Compare it to this. Please don't keep poisoning us. I want to bring home also our refugees. Team Alexis. Alexis Bortelli deserves to come back to Texas. She's now over 600 days in Colorado, seizure-free.
Yes.
Our current CBD program does not help. The immense amount of numbers that they want to charge people for it, and God bless, but we do not need a trooper outside of a dispensary. California has had medical cannabis for 20 years. 20 years now, okay? They have security people that help other businesses. We don't need the troopers. We don't need enormous things. Just let us have it, and let us help each other, and let us help all the citizens, because when you help us, I worked at a rally this past weekend and talked to thousands of veterans. And for every one that stood, 10 wouldn't do it because they're still afraid to put an anonymous name in a bottle because they'll be a criminal. Purple Heart soldiers, Iraqi pilots who are now commercial airline pilots who just want a little bit when they're down to relax on. It's time to change it, and Texas has a heart as huge as the nation. Let compassion begin, and inclusive for all of us. Thank you.
This is our final speaker, and for the media, any of us will be glad to talk to you as soon as the press conference is over. Dr. Lane Coleman, Army veteran, began his military career in 1972 as a medic with the 101st Airborne Division. After being commissioned as an officer, he was the psychologist for 2nd Armored Division and my 1st Cavalry Division. He is a veteran of Desert Storm, where he served with the Tiger Brigade of the 2nd Armored Division. Dr. Coleman was awarded the Combat Medical Badge for his service to soldiers during combat operations. Dr. Coleman is the former Chief of Psychology at Darnall Army Hospital at Fort Hood. After his assignment, Dr. Coleman was Chief of the Behavioral Science Specialist Branch at
The Army for the best part of my career with the Army. And also, somewhere in this morass of pills is one of mine. I suffer from PTSD. And I got a flyover. Well, anyway, what I have found, and what many, many veterans have found, is that when you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, the VA has a litany of medicines that they go through that are, at best, stopgap measures in terms of symptoms that you have. The thing about cannabis, particularly CBDs, is that as a psychologist with psychotherapy, it's very important that psychotherapy go along with this. This is not simply a single molecule drug. You have to have psychotherapy, but what you can do is you can literally take the terrible, horrible memories that are combined because of a particular way that the brain remembers stuff. And people who have lowered levels of what Dr. Beer talked about, endocannabinoids, they don't remember things the way that the rest of us do. It's much like an insulin patient, or a diabetic patient rather, that doesn't have enough insulin. And so this memory, this horrible memory of something that happens to, let's say I'm Scott and I'm David, something horrible happens to me, Scott gets PTSD, David doesn't. One of the reasons for that we're beginning to find is that they simply don't have enough of these chemicals in their endocannabinoid system to keep this brain mechanism that remembers things from remembering things in this most horrible way. Most of the time these memories are attenuated by our frontal lobes, which tell us that, hey, This is a unique circumstance. You're in a dangerous position. With psychotherapy and with the use of cannabis medicines, we actually have the potential for a cure for people with PTSD. We have the potential, again, let me say that, a cure. This is not where we put them on the VA's antidepressants and Prozac, the oldest antidepressant, and Paxil, one of the more older antidepressants, are the frontline medicines that you get. And then you get things called benzodiazepines, Valium, almost everybody's heard of that, and Xanax. And you live on that for the rest of your life. To me, that is just not right. I knew people in 1972 during the Vietnam War who treated their symptoms with heroin. And now we are in front of the state capitol debating whether or not we should allow these courageous men and women who served our country so well. We're debating whether or not they should have access to medical marijuana. This is not a debate. This is a certainty. This medicine works, and we need to allow these men and women who have served our country so well to have access to it. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the members of the press for being here. I'd like to thank the courageous veterans for standing up for themselves and for Texas patients throughout the state of Texas. And we will be working hard through the next legislative session to ensure that patients have safe and legal access to medical cannabis in the state of Texas. Thank you very much.